On January 16, 1919, the 18th Amendment was ratified, prohibiting the manufacture, sale, or transportation of intoxicating liquors in the United States. 1 year later, on January 17, 1920, this ban took effect, launching what President Herbert Hoover would call a great social and economic experiment, noble in motive and far-reaching in purpose. This experiment would last 13 years and teach America profound lessons about the limits of government power, the law of unintended consequences, and the difficulty of legislating morality. The story of Prohibition begins long before 1919. The temperance movement dated back to colonial times, but it gained tremendous momentum in the 19th century. Millions of Americans, motivated primarily by religious conviction and social reform, believed alcohol was responsible for poverty, domestic violence, moral degradation, and societal decay. Organizations like the Women's Christian Temperance Union and the Anti-Saloon League built powerful political coalitions dedicated to eliminating alcohol from American life. These weren't fringe extremists, they were mainstream reformers who saw alcohol as a genuine social problem. And they had evidence. Alcohol abuse did contribute to poverty and violence in many families. Working-class wives often bore the brunt of husbands who drank away wages needed for food and rent. Reformers believed that banning alcohol would strengthen families, reduce crime, and improve public morality. By 1917, a perfect storm of factors aligned to push Prohibition forward. Many states already had prohibition laws. America's entry into World War I created pressure to conserve grain for food rather than use it for alcohol production. Anti-German sentiment targeted breweries, many of which were owned by German Americans. The progressive movement's faith in government's ability to solve social problems was at its height. Congress proposed the 18th Amendment on December 18, 1917. It passed the Senate and House with overwhelming majorities. Interestingly, the amendment was the first to include a time limit. It had 7 years to be ratified or it would die. The Anti-Saloon League didn't need that long. Within 13 months, 36 states had ratified it. Nebraska became the crucial 36th state on January 16, 1919. By 1922, 46 of the 48 states had ratified it. This widespread support reveals something important. Prohibition wasn't imposed by a small elite on an unwilling population. It reflected genuine popular sentiment across much of America. The moral and religious arguments resonated with millions of citizens who believed government should promote virtue and discourage vice. But support for prohibition in principle proved different from accepting its practical implications. 9 months after ratification, Congress passed the Volstead Act, named for Andrew Volstead, but actually written by Anti-Saloon League leader Wayne Wheeler. This law defined intoxicating liquors as anything containing more than 0.5% alcohol, much lower than many people expected. To the surprise of beer and wine drinkers, their beverages were banned too. President Woodrow Wilson vetoed the Volstead Act, believing it went too far. Congress overrode his veto the very next day, demonstrating Prohibition's strong political support. But enforcing this sweeping ban would prove far more difficult than passing it. The 18th Amendment created what might be called a perfect storm for organized crime. Consider the situation. Millions of Americans still wanted to drink alcohol, but legal production and sale were banned. This created enormous profit opportunities for anyone willing to break the law. And break it they did spectacularly. Bootleggers smuggled liquor from Canada and Mexico. Rum runners brought it by boat from the Caribbean. Moonshiners produced it illegally in hidden stills. And perhaps most visibly, thousands of speakeasies, illegal bars, opened in cities across America. These establishments became glamorous symbols of rebellion during the Roaring '20s, where Americans from all walks of life gathered to drink illegally. Criminal organizations seized this opportunity. Gangsters like Al Capone in Chicago made millions from illegal alcohol. Capone's organization alone was estimated to earn $100 million annually from bootlegging. This money funded criminal empires that corrupted police forces, judges, and politicians. The murder rate, which initially declined, later rose to record highs due to gangland violence. Federal enforcement proved woefully inadequate. Prohibition agents like Eliot Ness made headlines with dramatic raids, but they couldn't stop the massive illegal liquor trade. Worse, the law bred contempt for all laws. When ordinary, otherwise law-abiding citizens routinely broke prohibition laws, respect for legal authority eroded. The economic consequences were severe. Legal breweries, distilleries, and saloons closed, eliminating hundreds of thousands of jobs. Tax revenue from alcohol disappeared just when the government needed it. When the Great Depression struck in 1929, these economic losses became unbearable. By the early 1930s, public opinion had shifted dramatically. The noble experiment had failed. Crime was worse, not better. Alcohol was still available to those who wanted it, but now it funded gangsters rather than legitimate businesses. The costs clearly outweighed any benefits. Franklin D. Roosevelt ran for president in 1932, promising to end prohibition. His victory signaled Americans' judgment on the experiment. In March 1933, shortly after taking office, Roosevelt signed the Cullen-Harrison Act, legalizing beer and wine with up to 3.2% alcohol. But ending prohibition fully required repealing the 18th Amendment. On December 5, 1933, the 21st Amendment was ratified, explicitly repealing the 18th. This made the 18th Amendment the only constitutional amendment ever to be completely repealed, a unique distinction that speaks volumes about prohibition's failure. What lessons does the 18th Amendment teach? First, that good intentions don't guarantee good results. Prohibition supporters genuinely believed they were improving society. They were wrong about how to achieve that goal. Second, the amendment demonstrates the limits of government power. You cannot successfully prohibit something millions of people want when there's no social consensus supporting that prohibition. Laws require popular support to be effective. Enforcement alone isn't enough. Third, prohibition teaches about unintended consequences. Banning alcohol didn't eliminate drinking. It drove it underground and created massive criminal enterprises. Often, attempting to solve one problem creates worse problems. Fourth, the amendment shows that social problems rarely have simple governmental solutions. Alcohol abuse was and is a real problem, but prohibition proved to be worse than the disease it sought to cure. Some modern scholars argue prohibition had positive effects. It reduced alcoholism and cirrhosis deaths during its early years. They're not entirely wrong, but these modest benefits were swamped by the massive costs: crime, corruption, disrespect for law, and economic losses. The 18th Amendment stands as a cautionary tale about the dangers of using constitutional authority to enforce particular moral views, especially when large segments of society disagree. It reminds us that government power should be exercised carefully, with humility about what law can and cannot accomplish. Most importantly, the amendment and its repeal demonstrates American self-correction. We tried an experiment, recognized it failed, and reversed course. That's not weakness, it's wisdom. The ability to admit mistakes and change direction is essential to free government. The 18th Amendment failed, but the process of recognizing and correcting that failure shows our constitutional system working as designed.